Chapter 5. The Dreams. Boys, Mum called to Corey's brothers, you'll need to sleep in the parlour tonight, on the floor, or on the couch. Corey needs the bed to himself for now. Jack, who was a few years younger than Corey, complained loudly and threw his nightshirt across the room. We never get any sleep when we have the couch. We'll be awake all night and we'll fall asleep at school tomorrow. Sammy, 2 years younger than Jack, chimed in. It's not our fault Corey went skating on thin ice. He stuck his tongue out at his brother. Quiet! Dad's loud voice boomed for silence. Corey's constant coughing will keep you awake. We don't want the three of you up all night. Then no one will get any rest. No more complaining about sleeping in the parlour. Understand? The boys' bedroom was on the 3rd floor, an unfinished room with one iron bed. The 3 boys always slept together, sideways on the bed. Tonight, though, Corey had the entire bed to himself. This was a good deal, and it might work even longer. Hadn't Mrs. Chudzik said he needed a rest for a few days? A few days? Not bad. Corey coughed several times, and his mother rushed over to him carrying a jar. Mrs. Sullivan told me to use this on your chest. She read the label. Vicks. It's something new for croup and pneumonia. She unbuttoned his shirt and rubbed the gooey salve all over his chest. It smells strong, Corey said, inhaling the fumes. It's full of good things like, she looked again at the label, menthol, which is mint, actually. You like mint, don't you? And eucalyptus. And camphor. Inhale it, Corey. It will help you breathe. She then buttoned him up, pulled an itchy woolen afghan over him and tucked him into the blankets. The next morning, Dad informed the school that Corey was done. Finished. He would be working in the mines soon and there was no need to go back to school. Corey felt a huge sense of relief when he knew he didn't have to face his teacher, Miss O'Shea, anymore. She didn't like or encourage children of miners. She often referred to them as foreigners and ignorant. Corey couldn't restrain himself one day when he heard her use those words, so he raised his hand, stood up, and suggested that, unless someone in the room was a Native American, then everyone, including Miss O'Shea, was a foreigner. Corey stretched out that night on the bed all by himself and fell asleep within minutes. His dreams were the shadowy rooms in Mrs. Chudzik's house, the beautiful 1911 touring car, Hovey, the dog, who'd rescued him, and the coffin. Then his dream turned to the shining ice, sparkling in the sunlight, smooth as a mirror. He skated amazingly well on the surface, better than he had ever skated, but now the ice became dark. He could feel himself sinking into the blackness of the pond, down into the murky water. Again he was struggling to find the hole where the ice had given way, where he could find air. He must find air. He needed to breathe. He felt his feet, with his skates still on, hit the bottom of the pond. The ice was now a roof over his head as he struggled to find his way out. He gasped and could feel the water coming into his mouth and throat. And he was deep in the black water, drowning again. Corey screamed and woke up, thrashing, coughing, and gasping for air. Corey, it's all right. You're safe. It was his mother's voice, and he found himself in her arms. The next morning when Corey came down for breakfast, his brothers were already at the table. They looked up from their bowls of cereal but were silent as Corey joined them. They'd probably heard his cries during the night and pestered Mum into revealing his nightmare. She must have insisted they say nothing. The winter vacation had ended and his brothers would be going back to school, so Corey wouldn't have to answer their questions today or see them whispering behind their hands about his shrieks in the night. However, he was sure they'd be telling his school friends what had happened. He hoped everything would be forgotten soon. As for Corey, he couldn't forget. That night, he had the dream again. Instead of screaming, Corey jolted awake, in a cold sweat and vomiting. After Mum had cleaned him up, it was a long time before he stopped shaking. He was afraid to sleep, even when he was drowsy and the pillow felt cool and soft. How long would he relive over and over again those horrific real moments when he was drowning? Because of the awful dreams, Corey was allowed to have the room to himself for a while longer. His brothers were not happy with this arrangement. "It's not fair," Sammy whined. "He's just pretending to have those dreams so he can sleep alone," Jack insisted. "Be kind and patient with your brother," Mum whispered. "He had a terrible ordeal. Mrs. Chudzik says he really drowned that day at the pond." Consequently, Corey was alone in the bed, alone in the room, and for another week he lay there at night trying not to sleep, trying to think of happy things, trying to do the times tables in his head, and then, utterly exhausted, he would fall into a deep sleep or end up back in the dark pond again. Finally, he said to his mother, "Mum, I don't want to sleep alone anymore. Perhaps having the boys in bed with me will help me to sleep." And it did, for a while.